Talk from a higher dimensional perspective. Looking at current affairs and the energies of the times. With a high vibrational proactive approach. Come and explore the universe within us all. Sundays, 1 till 3 on Wolf Spirit Radio. With Katie Gallanti and Jay Perron. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning if you're in New Zealand. This is Out of the Box. We are Katie Gallanti over there in San Diego. And this is JayPee up in Scotland, UK. And we are going to try and pull some stuff out of the box today. And today's box is all about being healthy and how we're being, prevented from being healthy and prevented from having a healthy finance, a healthy currency. So now you've done a lot of preparation for this, Katie, much more than I, and you in fact live in America, and I have as little to do with bureaucracy and healthcare as the next man. But you're primed, you're ready. On you go.
Okay, thank you. Hello, JayPee. That's how primed I am.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You. All right. Oh, on you go. Bless your heart.
I just needed to say hello first. All right. So, first of all, my plan from almost 2 weeks ago was to talk about Obamacare and all sorts of stuff to do with that, right? And then I got massive flu, which I've had since 3 or 4 days after Christmas, and I lost my voice, and it felt like I had pneumonia and all of this kind of stuff, and so I'm a little less prepared than I actually wanted to be. So we'll see where the show goes, in the sense that this Obamacare thing is a humongous topic, right? And the part of me that likes accuracy, I'm not sure that I've actually done as much homework on it as I needed to make a point. Do you know what I mean? But in general, this is something that I think everybody's going to have to deal with in America at some point, because from what I understand from reading, right, and I must admit that before I wasn't that, I was following the Obamacare, but it's always been very confusing to follow, because it's basically debating a 1,000-page piece of legislation, which is very unclear, I think it's unclear on purpose. So, and now we're seeing, it's kind of being implemented, and now we're kind of really getting to understand what it is all about. And one of the things that is becoming clear to me is that it is mandatory insurance, basically. I come from the UK. I was also raised in Italy, and we had, both in the UK and in Italy, different versions of the same thing that are basically a state driven health system, right? And a lot of Americans do not understand. I've had this experience of trying to explain how health works in Europe, or used to work in Europe at least. And very often people don't quite get it all the way. That we have hospitals that are basically they're not owned privately. And then you have to get insurance. It's a whole system that is has been around for a while, and it's completely integrated. So the whole health system is actually paid and run by taxes, and as such, it kind of works. I mean, I'm going to say kind of because obviously there's waiting lists for people to have certain kinds of surgeries, but you never really hear, or at least when I was in Europe, you never used to hear of somebody going bankrupt because they needed to go to the hospital, or because they had an accident, or because they bumped their head or whatever, right? Like, I have a friend here that 3 or 4 years ago was riding his bicycle, and a skateboarder, there's a lot of skateboarders here, right? A skateboarder just shot down from the hill and hit his bike, and he went flying, and he hit his head on the edge of the pavement, and he went into an instant coma, right, from the blow. Ambulance came, took him to the hospital. He was in intensive care for a while. They had to do something to drain the bruise inside of his head that was causing the coma. Eventually he comes out of a coma, and when he comes out of the coma, he owed the hospital something like $2 million.
Holy crap.
Okay. So all of a sudden, this guy who had a normal life is totally bankrupt. And, it was like, yeah, they did save his life, but they completely ruined his life at the same time. And this seems to be something, that has been a problem. So it's not that the system as is was particularly fabulous. I think there's definitely room for changes there, but the system that seems to have come in to replace it not only doesn't change any of that, because it's still the same model. It's still people having to buy insurance. In theory, this was supposed to be, it's called the Affordable Care Act, because people are supposed to be able to afford this, but they calculate what you pay depending on your taxes, like or your gross earnings or whatever. And but then you have to. It's mandatory now. Like, if you don't actually get this insurance, you have to pay a penalty, and the penalty is a percentage of your earnings. And they have recruited and given a whole bunch of money to the IRS that is the one that is going to enforce this penalty collection system, right? And the minimal insurance that one can buy, right, that one can get into, is still very expensive. Even the ones that have their premium subsidized, right? Like, so basically they don't have to pay quite as big a premium. The access of the level of care that they have is basically what used to be called catastrophic insurance, where basically there's a very high deductible and they don't cover anything until you've spent that deductible. So you still have to pay for your office visits, you still have to pay if you want to go to the doctor and so on. And it really just covers you in the case of something like smacking your head onto the pavement and so on. But the normal care is not covered, or covered in a very, very basic way, but you still have to pay the premium for all of this. So it's basically just forcing everybody to get insurance, and it's not an insurance that is in any way much better than what it was before. So from a point of view of just what it said that it was going to do, and that basically making everybody able to access insurance, it's not really doing that, and it's, however, forcing everybody to buy into a product that, and also it's not even a product that has, like, there's all sorts of rules now about what these insurance have to cover, right? And this is part of the problem too, because if somebody already had insurance, for example, and their original insurance does not cover certain key points, people lose that insurance. They're not allowed to continue to have it. So they lose whatever doctor they had, whatever plan they had. They're not allowed to keep it, and they have to buy into another level of it, right? Now,
so this sounds
other
to me.
things.
Oh, sorry, Kate.
Yeah, carry on.
I was just going to say. I mean,
ask questions.
yeah, this sounds very much like a tax rather than any.
It is.
I mean, it's basically forcing someone and threatening someone to pay a tax is coercion and domination and all of that stuff that we're trying to get away from. But just I just wanted to bear in mind where our collective, especially in this land, in this place, our collective baseline is that we're looking to be free from all this.
Absolutely.
So do go on, with that.
Well, yeah, and also it's not just. I mean, in Europe you pay tax for health, right? So you pay a percentage of whatever comes out of your paycheck goes towards health. But then you never have to think about it again. The whole system is subsidized. It's like putting a bit of money in the kitty, and then the big kitty creates the whole, pays for the whole health thing. Well, instead here, it's not like that. Here you have to put the money in the kitty, but then you don't get anything for it. And if you want something, you have to put more money in the kitty. Right?
Yeah, that doesn't seem to make sense.
No, it's like a tax. You have to pay a tax. You're forced to pay a certain amount of money, and it's not small potatoes money either. I was looking at an article, right? Because everybody's paying differently, so it's not super easy to actually figure out. You can't just say you're going to have to pay X, because it's very fiddly, this law. It's got a lot of different rules in it, right? Which is why being fluized is not super easy, but to prepare. But this is from an article that is online, right? I will read rather than quote. And it says, 54-year-old single adult in San Francisco earning $45,000 a year, right? Gross, which is a little bit less than $4,000 a month. So that is kind of like, a middle-level professional would get in a good job, right? Okay. And it says that a person of this kind can choose between different kinds of insurances, right? But that the low-level policy, that is basically this bronze plan that doesn't give you anything, right, apart from emergency insurance, is going to cost you $453 a month. That's a lot of money. Okay.
That's rubbish. Now, I pay less than that in rent.
Exactly. So, and there's still one of the things of the old insurance system that I always thought quite outrageous anyway, is that the older you get, the more insurance you pay, right? And so some people are still saving compared to what they were paying before, right? But it's still an extraordinary amount of money to have to pay for an insurance plan that doesn't give you hardly anything. And then after that, and it says, in exchange for those premiums payments, a bronze plan will cover 60% of your medical expenses, right? But that is only after you have met your $5,000 out-of-pocket annual deductible. Okay? So first of all, you have to spend $5,000 of your own money on all of these services. Once you've reached that $5,000, then they will pay for 60% of your medical expenses. So, and to get this wonderful insurance plan, you have to pay $453 a month.
What's a piece of, yeah. I mean, okay, so how do they get away with this? Well, we know what they're doing. We know that they're putting extra stress by putting on unfair taxes. This is an unfair tax, that's just what it is, and they're doing it deliberately so that people will rebel.
Well, and it's a crippling tax also. It's not a small potatoes tax. It's a crippling one. Now, people that are really low on the income ladder, right? do get subsidized. So they won't have to pay like $450 a month. They may have to pay $100 a month. Do you know what I mean? Or $50 a month or whatever. But still, the same thing applies, that they do not get pretty much anything until they've covered this, whatever their upfront deductible is, that is this $5,000 or $6,000. In some states, it's $10,000, right? Because apparently it varies by state, and I'm not going to swear on that because I would need to figure it out. But from what I'm reading, it sounds as if different states have slightly different rules. Now, the other thing is that because it's not a state-run thing, I mean, it's a state-mandated thing. I mean, I'm saying state, but I mean federal. It's a federal mandated insurance, but it's not federally run. It's still run by the private companies, the private insurance companies, and it's still run by the, by private people, right? So they're creating a precedent where the government can basically force you to buy a product, right? It's like if you don't buy this product, this insurance plan that is a product because it's private, okay? It's private to private. It's not. Yep. It's not a state. They can take a chunk of your income, right? And I think that this was, if I remember correctly, the main bone of contention that ended up having Obamacare debated at the Supreme Court, because they're saying that it's unconstitutional to do that, right? Like that it's not, you can't do that, basically. That's,
but the idea of the Constitution is not to create a federal state. It's to protect the federation, to protect the states. It's not to impose any. There's no global universal tax that's in any of the constitutional papers or anything like that. Nobody said that.
But also, not only that, but the fine point here is, I can, let's say I'm the government, okay, I'm the government, I build roads, alright, so I need your money to build roads, give me money, I build roads, right, do you know what I mean? But here, the government is saying, give me money, you have to buy this product, if you don't, then I come and take your money. And it's like, hang on a minute, aren't I free to choose whatever product I want to buy or not? Can't I be free to choose if I want to have health insurance or not? Do you know what I mean? They're making it something that you have to buy this or it's not okay.
Or you're a criminal.
Or, yeah.
So that everybody becomes a criminal.
Okay, so this is the kind of nuts and bolts of the actual way that the whole insurance thing is set up, but it kind of gets better. Right. Irony.
Yeah.
Because, and here I would have loved to have a little bit more time to do research, right? Because everything that I'm going to say today, I'm just going to say, this is what I think is happening. Go and do your own research and read some more up about it, because I think that this Obamacare thing and the laws attached to it are a big stinker. Okay, I can feel it intuitively. Everything that I read about it is kind of pointing that way. But the law itself, like the PDF of the law itself, is 950 pages long. Okay, the implementation, okay, and so how do we apply this to specific cases thing is 10,000 pages long. Okay. And it seems that everybody has got their own take on what is happening. So ultimately, it's like there's a lot of stuff that is not clear about this. There's a lot of stuff in it that doesn't feel good. But we've just started, and I think that we won't really understand fully what Obamacare is about until it actually starts rolling forward and happening. Because, for example, they had said that the president had actually said nobody's going to lose their original health plan, and then the minute in which January 1st came along, a whole bunch of people lost their health plan. And the reason for which they lost their health plan was because these health plans that they had were not Obamacare compatible. To be Obamacare compatible, apparently, an insurance plan has to have the following points in it, okay? it has to cover ambulatory patient services, emergency services, hospitalization, that makes sense, maternity and newborn care, regardless if you're 65 or 95, you have to pay for maternity and newborn care. It has to be in the plan. Mental health and substance use disorder services, including behavioral health treatment, okay? Prescription drugs, rehabilitative and habilitative services and devices, laboratory services, preventative and wellness services, and chronic disease management, pediatric services, including oral and vision care for children. It doesn't matter how old you are or whatever, these things have to be in there, okay? So there were some people that had insurances that covered less than this, and as a result of that, their insurance companies by law had to drop them because these plans are no longer, they're not Obamacare compatible, and therefore they are illegal, right? And so the insurance companies had to drop all of these people. So these people all of a sudden don't have insurance and have to get a Obamacare compliant insurance, okay? So there's a lot of stuff that, now that it's rolling forward, it's like, hang on a minute, what about this piece? Hang on a minute, what about that piece, right? And this morning I was listening to a doctor that was actually talking about the doctor end of this, right? And he was saying that it's horrible, the doctor side of it, because he was talking about meetings that he has been to, and I'm assuming that these are meetings, with people, meetings where they were trying to explain to the doctors what it is that they're supposed to be doing, right? And this is what the doctor said. And again, I don't know if it's true or not, but this is what the doctor said. He said that hospitals now respond to government, and the government can impose penalties on hospitals for not following, the rules, okay? And the rules have to do with also even how people are treated, treatments that are allowed and not allowed, and all that kind of stuff, okay? And he said that under this law, if it rolls forward the way that it's written, okay, it's not happening just yet, but that this is what they think is going to happen if things go forward the way that they're written. The procedure is that the doctor examines the patient, issues a diagnosis. That diagnosis has a code that goes with it, right? Like 345 for sore throat or whatever, right? They stick the code in this kind of like iPad type device, and this code goes to the National Health Coordination Office, something like that, right? And where treatment protocols that have been devised by the health board, by government-created health boards, whose treatment protocols are based on rationing of health care, on a cost-to-benefit reasoning, right? So how much benefit is the patient going to get for how many years in relationship to cost? There's all of these protocols that are all set up.
Algorithms,
and then the protocol will, the guy will receive back a treatment protocol on his little iPad thing, and that is how he's going to treat the patient. If the doctor does not follow the protocol, apparently, doctor faces penalties. So this doctor said that he asked, okay, so what's the penalties? He said this is cookbook medicine, which is actually very dangerous because not all patients are created equal, and you can kill people with cookbook medicine. He said, what if I decide that this treatment protocol is not suitable for this particular patient, right? So he was told that if that were the case, that he would have a penalty, first offense penalty, and he asked how much the penalty was, and he said up to $100K. So up to $100,000 a penalty for the first offense of breaking protocol. And then he asked, okay, so what's the second one? Let's say that I win the lottery and I want to pay the $100K fee, right? What's the second offense? And he said that there was much mumble grumble, right? Because they didn't really want to answer that. And then he insisted, and he got that the second penalty was higher, obviously, and could also include going to jail, right? So it's like, okay, so now this sounds almost like science fiction to me. Do you know what I mean?
It sounds like a cross between a bad science fiction film and global Nazism. And Agenda 21 and artificial intelligence and transhumanism. And if your body dies because of this treatment protocol, it's not our fault, it's your fault for not conforming.
That's right. Now, I was talking to another friend of mine this morning who listens to a lot of health, like health is her thing, right? So she listens to a lot of radio, and she was saying that she wasn't 100% sure of this, but that she had heard, and again, do your own research, because some of this is rumor. And I was saying to her, I said, how much of this stuff is actually true, or is it just rumor? And she actually said to me, well, nobody really understands exactly how things are going to work out, but there's enough stuff, like red flags type stuff, that is giving cause for concern, right? And she was saying that it seems that if you refuse to have, as a patient, let's say that you say, okay, I've come into the emergency services and because I had massive bellyache and my eyeball was popping out of my head, do you know what I mean, or whatever, right? If when you get examined...
Sounds like a normal Friday night for me.
That's right. So let's say that's the example. Go to the thingy, massive headache, eyeball swelling. Right? Let's say that when you do that, the guy says, oh, our beautiful iPad has decided that, a health iPad has decided that...
Because you could use the iPad to cover the eye. No, sorry, go on.
I'm sure there's many, many, many wonderful uses for the iPad. So anyway, so apparently if the treatment that comes up says we have to remove your eyeball, right? And you were to say, well, I'm not really in for that right now. I think I'm going to go home, right? Put some drops in it or something, right? Let's say that you were to say that. I'm being silly because this is so dramatic as a topic that I kind of have to...
Yeah, we need to inject a bit of exaggerated humour, yeah.
But basically the idea is that if you refuse that treatment, then they will pull your insurance, right? And for people like us, that is not a big deal because we don't want this insurance anyway. We treat our own stuff our own way anyway. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of people that get very, here in America, that get very, very frightened, especially older people, when at the thought of not having insurance or having their insurance pulled or whatever. So the potential for forcing stuff, right, with a setup of that kind is humongous.
Well, there's pressure from everybody, isn't there? There's pressure on the doctors to make you conform. There's pressure on the on the patients who are trying to get better, but in order to get better, you have to do all this crap, and that's the crap that might be making you ill in the first place. Which, of course, if you're like that, then you don't conform.
Yeah. And then there's the financial... Yeah. And then there's the financial pressure, and the financial pressure of actually having to cough up all of this money in the first place, right? Because now, under the current system, I think the current system of insurance, or the one that used to be here until before this, totally sucked. But at least you had the option of opting out of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you had the option of saying, I don't want insurance, I'm not going to pay for it, I don't want it, I'm not going to participate, and I'll take my chances. If I bash my head, I'll be bankrupt, and that's fine. Right? But effectively, what they are doing is that they're taking away the freedom to opt out. Because in one way or another, they're either going to take your money because of the insurance, or they're going to take your money because you're not playing with the insurance, right? So, and the benefits in terms of the healthcare and what people are receiving, I'm not quite seeing what the benefit is here. It doesn't seem to me that anybody's benefiting that much. Maybe the insurance companies that have been chosen as compatible, with these requirements.
I think it would be worthwhile investigating those companies, what their lobbying connections are, and looking down that little rabbit hole, because I think it would be a rich seam. There'd be some news.
Yeah, and here in California, I haven't looked at the higher level plans because they're completely out of my range and I can't even look at them, right? But the low level plans that give you nothing, right? There's Kaiser Permanente is in it, and I think Blue Cross Blue Shield is the other one. And so, can you imagine how many new people these guys are going to have? And why would these chosen over other insurances anyway? And I think that one of the main reasons which they've been chosen is because they are very well established HMOs, okay? And I'm sure that there's also all of the money scheming, do you know what I mean, behind it as well, and so on. And the whole idea about the HMOs, I have mentioned this document before. I'm going to mention it again because I think it's important. And I actually have bullet points about it because my brain at the moment doesn't retain information, right?
Very unlike you, Katie.
I know. It's the lovely chemtrail flu is a wonderful thing, and we can talk about the chemtrail flu and the ascension flu and all of those things in a minute as well.
That's true, right? and it's part of this. I mean, in a way, it's, to me, if I was wanting to drain the last drop of energy from an already rather hurt but previously strong population, what I would do is I'd first of all fix it so that it cost them an awful lot to get better, and then I'd make everybody ill. And everybody would go to their doctors, and all they do is plug in International Disease Code 937, and out comes a Merck product, or it's a Pfizer product, or a Bayer Dynamic. Bayer Dynamic. That's the company.
Yeah.
Bayer Dynamic.
No.
It's always a dynamic. In the science fiction films, it's always a dynamic. It's Bayer Dynamic. Anyway, back to your back to your
net, Skynet, Medinet.
Yes.
Right. Dynamics and nets. Yeah. So the document and again, people can check if this is a real document or not. It always felt very real to me when reading it intuitively. You can look it up. It's called the New Order of Barbarians, right? Put it into Google, it will come up. Okay, I think it will be the first or second thing, or a search engine, whatever search engine you use. So, New Order of Barbarians, right? And it's basically a transcript of a speech that was given on March 20, 1969, to a doctor, Dr. Richard Day, right, by an insider of, quote-unquote, the order, right? And then this guy, several years later, about 20 years later, when he was much older, the doctor decided to talk about this, and the whole content was recorded on 2 or 3 tapes, because tapes was how they did things at the time. And this thing that I'm pointing towards is the transcript of that tape. And this doctor has died now; he's not around anymore. But basically, if I remember correctly, he was.
The tape was made when? Kate, the tape was made when?
Sorry.
What year was the tape made?
The year that he was. The year that he heard this information was in 1969, okay? The year that he talked about it was in 1988, okay? And there's a reason for that, because they were, basically the story is, the guy is a doctor, and he goes to a conference, and in this conference, that I think was about pediatric stuff. So it was like, about medicine for children and so on. It was a doctor, right, made a speech off the record, right, during his address at the Pittsburgh Pediatric Society, right, to a meeting of students and health professionals who were destined to be leaders in medicine and healthcare, right? I don't know about destined to be leaders, but, that we're going to be prominent in that field, right?
Sounds like the Eton College of American Medicine, yeah.
Yeah. So, and they were told basically that, couldn't take notes and, that this was just off the record. Everybody had to turn off their tape recorders, all of that kind of stuff, right? And this is, in a way, the usual Luciferian MO, right? They have to disclose it somewhere, right? Like they have to tell you somewhere what it is that they're doing. That is their MO. It is part of the way in which they comply with the law of free will that says that if I have told you that something is going on and you do not oppose it, then it's on you and not on me. Okay? This is how the Luciferians interpret free will law, spiritually, free will law. And in their mind, then the karma is on you instead of on them because they already told you what it is they're going to do and you didn't do anything about it, therefore, too bad. Okay?
Partial disclosure.
That is they disclose, they always disclose, they disclose in a little article on Yahoo. If you look, everything that they do, they always disclose, right? But they often disclose it in a way where very few people actually are aware that the disclosure has happened at all. Sometimes they're more blatant, but they always disclose. So this was part of the disclose, right? And it's a big, long thing. It's like the transcript of like hours and hours of stuff, right? But basically, in a nutshell, let me just find my notes 1 second. Barbarians. Okay. Barbarians, bullet notes, okay? The agenda, he was basically saying that things were going to be changing on the planet Earth and how things were going to be done, and that there was going to be a movement towards killing the personal doctor and the idea of a doctor that actually interacted personally with the patient as an individual entity, okay? And that the doctors were going to become part of organizations where they had to obey to rules and in which they basically did not have the freedom to operate on their own, okay? And as part of all of that, they also said all of these various things, that the agenda was population control, to get to a point where you had to have permission to have babies and to reproduce, redirecting the purpose of sex so that sex would be without reproduction, but reproduction would be without sex, so that most children would be conceived in vitro, right? Tax-funded abortion as a means for population control. Technology used for reproduction without sex, obviously that's an important one because it keeps on coming up. Families that had to diminish from importance and that they would do everything they could to create split within families, right? Including encouraging people to work away from their hometowns and to move for work, all right? Euthanasia and the demise pill and pre-death counseling. Limiting access to affordable medical care, eliminating the elderly easier. And by the way, in Obamacare, there seems to be something that says that medicines that are for treatment, you have to pay for them, but medicines that speed and demise are free. Okay. Medicine...
keep going. Okay. I'm bubbling.
Medicine would be tightly controlled, so a lot of controls about how medicine is practiced. We're seeing that coming up in Obamacare. Elimination of private doctors. They've already done that with the HMOs, but they with this system, they're going to go further. And one of the things that I was reading when I was doing my research is that there are some hospitals, I don't really understand enough about it, but apparently there's some hospitals that are privately run by doctors that they're not like insurance plan hospitals, and they've had to close down because they're not in alignment with the requirements for Obamacare. Okay, now new difficult to diagnose and untreatable diseases, and this was in 1969. This was kind of hinting at things like AIDS. Do you know what I mean? HIV coming in that would be introduced into the thing, you know, like the big soup. Suppressing cancer cures as a main means of population control. Technology for inducing heart attacks as a form of assassination. Education as a tool for accelerating the onset of puberty so that people would get sexualized really early through things like sex education and all that kind of stuff. And then, hang on a minute, let me just see. A restructuring of education so that education became a tool of indoctrination, right? So that they could basically get to seed the ideas that they wanted into the education. We all know that, so that's been happening for a long time. And also, they were talking about the disappearing of books, that they didn't want books, and we're seeing that now with all of the tablet technology soon. The thing about digital books rather than print books is you can't change a print book, right? But you can change a digital book. So, while it's great that we can all read stuff on tablets or on the computer and so on, if we actually were to get to the point where there's no books, like physical books anyway, that is a kind of a dangerous place to be, because then there's no record of anything fixed, right? You can basically rewrite history to your heart's content. You can rewrite books. You can take stuff out of books that was there and make it go away. Do you know what I mean? It creates a changeable piece of information rather than a set in stone one, and so on. So this, I've been aware of this piece for a while, that we're going further and further into the digital. There is a place for print. Print is something that is important when you want solid records of stuff that nobody can modify, right? Then they were saying that they were going to increase and encourage, even if covertly, the use of drugs and alcohol, okay, so that people would become addicts. And it was I remember really well, because it was saying that they did that on purpose. It was almost like a survival of the fittest thing, because people that succumbed to that in some ways didn't really deserve to live, so they would eliminate themselves by doing this, right? Which I thought was very evil. And very Luciferian. Also, restrictions on travel, that they were going to make travel harder and more expensive at some point. And the list goes on and on and on and on. Okay? Like, it's a big, there's a lot of stuff in there. And it's interesting because all of these points, right, they've been introducing them for a while. And if this document is authentic and this stuff really was on the cards right from 1969, you can see that they have been just dripping and dripping and dripping this stuff, one little piece at a time, and basically implementing an agenda that it seems that has been very clear and very organized for a very long time. And whenever I look at, I read this thing a couple of years ago, and whenever I look at what's in the Obamacare thing, I'm like, every time I read these things, it makes me think about this thing, because literally it's doing all of the things that were in the document. It's taking away. It's going to make the private doctor disappear. It's going to make the health into something that is extremely corporate, but government-run corporate, with very little freedom, and through which they can implement all sorts of things. one of the things that we need to get really clear about as far as Obamacare is, for example, things like vaccinations. Are people going to be able to opt out of vaccinations? Because that's part of the agenda, that everybody has to be vaccinated. And if you go and you have the flu, you have to take the flu shot. Is it going to be mandatory to do that kind of stuff or not? I'm not 100% sure about that, okay? But that would be something quite interesting to get clear about, because so far people have been able to choose to some degree what they want to do with the whole vaccination thing. But if we're not going to be able to choose, then the government can basically decide what to inject into us and when at their own discretion, right? So we know, aside from the fact that who knows what's in the vaccines, you can put microchips into the vaccines now because they're with the nanotechnology without people even knowing about it. Generally, the thought that a board somewhere can decide what needs to be injected into my body, and for me not to be able to say I don't want this,
Death
right?
panel.
Yeah, that's pretty scary, and it's not just about death, but it's about health in general. Who knows what they can inject into you? Do you trust them? I don't. Do you know what I mean? I don't trust them at all. The whole vaccines thing in 2009 with the whole H1N1 is one of the main reasons for which I decided to stop just thinking about stuff and to come out and actually speak about it, because it never felt very it's kind of how I started talking on the radio and stuff, because I was very opposed to that, and it felt very important to speak up against it, right? But so far we've had a choice. So far you can go to Rite Aid, and Rite Aid tries to mind control you into getting the vaccines and the flu vaccines and so on, with big scary posters that tell you how bad the flu is, right? But they can't actually sit you down and stick a needle in you, right? But if we are losing our health freedom, and if the things that this doctor is saying are true, there may be many people that don't have the freedom anymore to make those kind of choices if they want to keep an insurance plan of any kind. And I've had people, because I brought up some of these things on Facebook the other day, and somebody said, well, I don't really want Western medicine anyway. I just want to use homeopathic medicine or, alternative medicine and so on, which is great, and I agree. But there are some things for which we do need Western medicine, like fast, rapidly growing tumors, or cancers or whatever. Sometimes you do need to go in there and cut them out, right? It's like if something is growing slowly and so on, then great, you can reverse those kind of things. But sometimes you can have some situations where the health issue is very fast, it requires a really speedy intervention, or you die, right? Western medicine has always been very good at that piece. Also, Western medicine is often important for diagnoses, so that you find out exactly what's wrong in the first place, to have a scan or whatever. There are aspects of Western medicine that are important, and there are risks that one takes if one does not have access to that. It can result in premature death and so on, right? And I'm very aware of those things because here in San Diego, at the beginning I didn't drive or anything, and I used to get the bus, and the bus is like where all of the poor people hang out. Here, normal people in San Diego don't seem to go on the bus. It's like the bottom of the bottom of the food chain of money.
So that's what what used to
Yeah.
be exasperatingly referred to in the council estate that I used to live in, what you American you call a project, and I was in one of the worst, and it was called a sink estate, where they quote decant the residue.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
So I too lived among the residue. Oh, how awful! You say, well, I'm going to have a rant in a minute about some of this stuff, but anyway, go on.
Basically, the reason which I brought forward that is that you would see these were people that totally did not have access to any kind of healthcare, right? Because they don't have the money to buy a car, they're not going to have the money to get on a bus. To get health insurance, right? And so you would see people like with a respirator, like the level of sickness of these people, right? It was kind of scary. There were a lot of people on the bus that were insanely sick. And I remember at the time, because I was just fresh from Europe, thinking, you don't see this kind of stuff in Europe, because these kind of people, they would have gotten treatment before it got this bad, right? You know, it's like I have something and you don't treat it, eventually you have to cut it off. Do you know what I mean? Through an emergency, through going to the hospital at the last minute in an emergency to try to save your life, right? So it was almost as if I could see that people are much more extreme health issues than I was used to seeing, right? And part of it, I'm sure, because they were just not getting the health care that they needed early enough. So add also to this, and that they're trying to poison all of us, right? With the food and with the stuff that they're spraying in the sky and all the rest of it. It's like, it can get a little worrying, right? So it's they're closing up on many fronts here. Okay. And luckily we do, just so that people don't jump off a bus and suicide right now, right? There's basically different levels of ways of looking at things. So this is what is happening and what is being implemented. I think it's very important that people understand that something is going on here that is not very good, and really this Obamacare thing needs to be stopped, right? Okay. So on the one hand, who knows what's going to transpire from this? Are people going to just go along with this? Are they going to say no? Are they going to say we don't like it? Are people going to not go for it and just pay for the penalties? So far, I read that out of all of the Americans that there's a bunch of them. I think it's 350 million or something. Like it's in that range, right? That at the beginning of the year, only 1 million had actually signed up for the under the Obamacare thing. That's not a lot.
Totally. And one of the problems was that there was a piece of software, there was an application written that was, if I'd have written that, I don't know, people would have probably beaten me up with sticks.
Fired you.
Well, certainly fired me, no, but worse,
Yeah, so, well, and then that's the other level, isn't it? The grand incompetence that drips down from everywhere. And that happens to any organization that tries to cater to millions of people at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So, I've heard people that are saying that don't worry about all of this because it's not working. They can't even get it to work, and it's all going to collapse in a big heap, right? That basically this is almost like a mammoth plan that, however, is impossible to run. Okay,
and so they can blame for the ultimate collapse that is bound to happen anyway. They can blame Obama and say, "Look what your Obamacare did," but it was going to fall down anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
Or that they've pushed it in that way. And again, who knows, right? Like, who knows? Because even within the elite itself, and I think we've talked about this before, there's factions, right? So they're not all exactly on the same page. So I think the overall agenda that, let's call it the elite, has overall in the big wide universe, like there's a common thread that they all have and they all agree on. But I think that different factions own different pieces of the pie, right? And that different factions pull in different directions with it. So, for example, there are ones that want the war, right, as a way to create global chaos and then go to another level with the global fascism thing. And then there's the ones that don't want the war, and they want to push things like global warming. Whether it's happening or not, it doesn't matter. I had a big long discussion about this the other day on Facebook, and it got some heat going, right? But it doesn't really, what people don't understand about global warming is whether the planet is global warming or not, to some degree, it doesn't matter. It's what they're using that concept for that is the stinky bit. And the concept is being used to introduce global taxation and global control monitoring measures, right? And ultimately, all of these things are about increasing control, more control, more control, more control, more control, right? More taxation, more control, more taxation, more control. Because then what happens at the end, if you increase the taxation and the control to an extreme point, then we're back to the feudal system. It's like a planetary feudal system with a few people in charge that decide everything and everybody at the bottom that just is busy surviving and following the rules. And that's really what they want, right? In terms of the end result, as far as the population is concerned, they also want less of us on the planet because I think it's easier to do the control when there's less people, right? I don't think depopulation is their primary goal, but I think that it's part of the control goal to get it down to a manageable number, right? And so on and so on. And then, it's like the agenda, there's so much of it in so many different directions. There's the physical 3D material level of the agenda, and then there's the esoteric spiritual level of the agenda.
While you've been talking about it, the kind of pictures in my mind have really been. I just keep seeing I'm standing in a huge barn, huge. It's part of a farm, and essentially humans are contained within this large barn, and sometimes they get sick. And they produce waste and they need feeding, and that's the government. That's how the government has to see us. And it's natural to see us. However, when pressure is applied from above or from within, their behavior changes and it becomes more panicked. And that's what's happening. This is what, I mean, everything sounds like a real panic and to send everybody into panic and make everybody really freak out. Look at this thing, you're going to be, everybody's going to be a criminal. How bad, the worst thing everybody can be is a criminal. And the best thing everybody can be is a faithful taxpayer. Because that makes people feel okay. And this is taking everybody into the zone of being a criminal. And if you're a criminal, you can be controlled because we have to control criminals. So, but society agrees that if you're a criminal, you must be contained and controlled. And so, if everybody becomes a criminal, then everybody is contained and controlled. And we're not in a prison; we're on a farm, we're in a paddock, we're in a barn, we're in we're eating out of mangers and pooing in straw.
Yeah, well, basically, what they're doing is that they're putting electric fences around the barn. And the fences are becoming taller and closer so that there's less and less room to move, right? That's kind of what I'm seeing. And by the way, astrologically, if you want to go on about astrology a tiny bit, that is Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto is, as an energy, Pluto is it's an interesting energy because it can be extremely healing and extremely destructive.
First rate.
Depending on it's like a Pluto. I was sharing this with a client the other day. The Pluto is, plutonium. It comes from Pluto, right? Pluto. And plutonium can be very good. It can create energy, but if it goes wrong, it will blow the planet up, right? Okay. So Pluto is kind of about power. It can also be about healing and transformation, very deep healing and transformation of the shadow side of self. But it can also be about power, and Capricorn is very much the energy of conservative, old establishment, and so on. So Pluto in Capricorn can be power gone wild, and it's very easy to associate it with the energy of fascism and dictatorship and so on. And it doesn't matter if it's left, if it's cloaked in a left progressive kind of garb, or if it's cloaked in a right-wing, whatever. Once you get to the extremes, it's all fascism, and it's all control, and it's all rules and all the rest of it, right?
Well, it's the difference between a factory farm and a family home farm.
That's right. And Pluto is going to be in Capricorn until 2020 something, okay? So we've still got another 10 years or so of this energy. And the good thing is that we also have Uranus and Aries, that is a much more rebellious energy, and that energy is going to be around for a few years still. So it's not unopposed, okay? This energy is not unopposed, but astrologically you can see the Pluto in Capricorn kind of like gaining more and more energy and more momentum as we go deeper into Capricorn with it. It started around the time in which Obama was elected, and this is an energy that could become extremely destructive if it's left unchecked. Okay.
Oh yeah, this is the tyranny, and this is the tyranny that they find in the future that traces back to here, and this is it kind of expanding. So what we need to do is make sure that this thing has so overextended itself it collapses.
Yeah, and we need to make sure of various things, because they're on the one hand, we need to really and truly stop sleeping. Okay. We always say this, but it's actually the whole system is designed so that you're not really aware of what is happening until it's already happening. One of the things that they are doing from a legal perspective is that they are inserting, this is the new style thing of the past 5 to 10 years, make legislation and bills that are so long and complicated that nobody actually understands what's in it. But somebody tells you what's in it, and it gets voted, it gets, and I'm sure that a lot of people are told what to vote. It doesn't really matter if they read it or not, right? They just have to do what they're told. But even the general public, while these debates are going on, we don't all have law degrees. We don't all understand, we don't all have the time and the background, the legal background to read a 1,000-page document.
And legalese is not English either. It means the opposite.
It is.
So it's black magic. So we talked about this many times on the show.
Absolutely. So, then you have a whole bunch of stuff that gets passed into law, and it goes through a legislative process of some kind, but it's hardly transparent. It's hardly democratic in the old. I don't like the word democracy anymore. I mean, it used to mean something and it doesn't anymore. Right? Like democracy now is just another scam, right? But if we think of what democracy used to mean, that I think meant, that we did things properly and fairly, right? So that everybody had a say and majority pushed things forward and all the rest of it. That process is long gone. It's a joke, like how things are done now. It's like legislation goes through like at midnight on a Friday night with when there's like 15 people there to sign it into law. It goes through and then people read it after.
That's right. Well, that's how Woodrow Wilson, who was also obviously compromised, allowed the Federal Reserve to get in. And that,
absolutely.
I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking, I wonder if the Illuminati really, really arrived 200, all these thousands of years ago, and whether or not they just came here about 100 years ago, did the infiltration trick, and then used time travel to achieve the rest of the fake history.
Yeah,
that was just a thought that I had. I don't know.
It's possible. It's possible. It's also possible that they come here at key times, right? It's almost like, I have a plantation, to go back to your farm analysis, right? It's like, hey, I have a farm in Alaska, and it's all set up to work pretty okay, but I have to go there at certain times during the season to just make sure that it's all running as I want it to, and tighten the screws a little bit so that the animals don't go all crazy. Right?
Yeah, and you got some of the animals looking after the other animals.
That's right. And so you have to make sure that everything is still running the way that you set it up, right? And so on. So it may be that there are waves of this because, okay, so then now we're going into the woo-woo, okay?
Yeah, because we're going to Orion, aren't we?
Well, yeah. But not just Orion, but we're also going into ascension cycles and so on. And again, thanks to the grand pollution of the new age movement, right? Now talking about this kind of stuff almost discredits you with the InfoWarrior community, because everybody in the InfoWarrior community, the majority of people think that the whole ascension thing is a pile of poo, right? And a lie, and
well,
so on.
Let's not call it ascension then. Let's call it what I've been calling it all along, which is initiation. And it's much different. Takes a whole load of stuff away from it. But it's essentially the process. It's the same process.
It is. It's a cyclical
impulse.
Dimensional. It's a cyclical opportunity for a dimensional shift. Okay? So it's not a dimensional shift because you can go through one of these cycles and not shift at all, right? But it's a cyclical opportunity for a dimensional shift, both at the individual level and at the collective level. And which is timed not by us, not by the Illuminati, but by universal galactic solar cycles, because the universe, the physical universe, is not the way that we have been taught that it is. It's not a bunch of rocks swirling around in orbits.
It's a living, breathing being.
It's a living, breathing being that is connected to the source consciousness, right? Source consciousness kind of being the central hub from which all of this radiates, right? If there is such a thing as the Big Bang, that's where it comes from, okay? Although there are Big Bangs happening all over the place. Because
actually, I think it's more like a big,
Yeah. Yeah, and also it keeps on happening. It's like the universe keeps creating universes, if you know what I mean. It's like the process it doesn't stop. Do you know what I mean? And then we're getting into stuff that is so big that we end up losing the words to be able to describe some of these processes. But the universe itself is a consciousness field. It's a It has awareness. Every part of it has some kind of awareness, different kinds of awareness, depending on where you're looking, where you're pointing your attention, right? But and consciousness-wise, you can tune into this stuff and you can feel it if you're switched on that way, and if you can clear your mind of interference, right? Raise your consciousness enough that you can go beyond the stuff that keeps us locked into here, right? But within this, there seems to be almost like a universal galactic clock that ticks, and every now and then there's an opportunity for shifting to a higher level of consciousness, and this is triggered. It's literally almost like a physics thing. It's triggered by energies that come in. Those energies are very real. If you're sensitive, you can feel them, right, and so on. So the reason and the timing of this process is, the reason for which all of these things are happening, the reason for which the dark overlords are particularly busy at the moment and have been in the past 100 years is because they have to make sure that when the clock ticks, that our consciousness does not shift, okay? They need our consciousness to not go to the next level of positive, because if we do go as a collective to the next level of positive, they lose the farm, pretty much.
Yeah, they lose their food source. And
they can't do the farm thing anymore. The farm does not work for them. Then they have to find some other place to go play, okay?
And go eat.
Now, yeah. And now again, once we said this before, if you take it out another notch still, they are kind of doing their job, because we need, it's almost like a story. In the story, the hero needs a villain, because otherwise there's nothing to overcome, right? So as they're kind of doing their job a little too well, right?
Very enthusiastic, yes.
Very enthusiastically. And this plane has been now stuck in this mode for many, many cycles, apparently. But but they are kind of doing their job in terms of providing that obstacle that forces us to either go one way or another way, okay? And that is the context in which this is an initiation, like you say, because it is. And in that context, they are the initiation tool. A lot of initiations are actually, in the old days, the mystery school initiations, old days, I mean Atlantis, do you know what I mean, that kind of stuff, were no joke. You had, your life was at stake, right? And in Egypt as well. Like you had to swim with the crocodiles and come out alive, kind of thing. So this is the collective version of swimming with the crocodiles, literally, because the dark guys are crocodile-like. Right, so we're swimming with the crocodiles here. But the fact that we understand that on some level they're fulfilling a cosmic duty, right, to be bad, does not mean that we are supposed to sit and accept it and twiddle our thumbs, because our cosmic duty is to rise above it. Our cosmic duty is to not allow the bully to bully. Our cosmic duty is to use the bully as a way to find an extra level within ourselves of strength, of love, of awareness, of boundaries, of whatever. You know, the boundaries are part of healthy self-esteem. They also help the bully to not bully quite as much, because if you don't allow the bully to bully, he can't do that. It helps him to evolve as well, okay? So boundaries are a part of evolving. Boundaries are a part of love. If you've ever been in a dysfunctional relationship, you know that if your boundaries are not right, bad things can happen.
And often do.
So, often do. So we're supposed to learn all of these things, okay? And so as part of learning that on the physical level, things are happening on the earth plane, such as laws like Obamacare, or systems like Obamacare that are being pushed along, and we're supposed to not allow it, right? Or we're supposed to do something else. Now, on a very physical level, and by physical I mean 3D reality, like the outer world, what we do is that we stay very aware about what's going on, and whatever form of activism that can stop things from going forward, once we get clear about what is happening, it definitely needs to occur, in my mind, right? And on the energetic level, since everything is energy, as usual, usual rules apply. They apply for anything that these guys are doing. Keep visualizing things that they're doing that we don't think should happen dissolving, okay? Just literally in your mind's eye, visualize whatever it is that is occurring dissolving, going flat, like the energy running out of it and so on. Then also at the energetic level, something that people can do on a daily basis if they want to is to ask for the energies that are pushing all of this stuff, most of which are extra dimensional, right, to leave. Okay, visualize them leaving. Ask, if you're spiritual, you can ask source, God, whatever it is you want to call it, to help them to be removed and to leave. And if you're not, then you don't do this piece, right? You just do the physical piece, which is fine, okay? And but yeah, it is very possible for us to quote unquote take this planet back, and in some ways we're already doing it, right? Because the people are waking up in droves. I mean, the other day I was looking at, there was a friend of mine on Facebook who is like an info type, and he had something like 250 likes on something that he had written, right? And I was like, oh, that's great. So then I went and I had a look at who liked him, and not one single person was in my friends list. And I have a lot of people in my friends list. And the thought that I had was, if there are 250 people on this guy, you know, that is a friend of mine, and there is overlap, right, between what I'm doing and what he's doing, and none of them are in my circle, it means there's a ton of us. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It means that, it means there's a whole, because if 250 people like what he said, there's probably 1,000 that didn't bother to even say anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because a lot of people don't bother to interact, right? So the feeling that I got from it is like, great, because this means that there's, there's really, really a lot of us. There's a lot of us. This is we're becoming big numbers, and big numbers that understand the game that is being played. And understanding is very important and sharing between each other is important, because we are building into a cohesive force, right? And then I always keep seeing the next step is, okay, so then what? Do you know what I mean? Then, okay, we're all together, we all agree with each other, there's a lot of us, and now we have to do the next piece. And what the next piece is, I'm not sure what that looks like. Does it look like nobody signs up for Obamacare? I think a lot of the freedom that we have is mostly to not go along with the program, right? It's like, if we don't participate at all, then a lot of these things cannot occur.
That's right. My
It's
first
people-
thought
Yes, carry on.
is medical co-ops. You know, in the same way that they've got housing co-ops over in Britain, where you'd get a group of people to club together and invest in a property and do it all up and run it as a cooperative, which means there's no fixed leader, that everybody takes a turn, blah, 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 blah. That it's a non-hierarchical system, that everybody takes responsibility in turn. And why not apply that to medicine? Why not apply that to, well, we've applied that to currency, and we have a thing called let system.
Yeah.
So there are solutions for this, but what this seems is it's not. This is not about medicine. That's the thing.
No,
it's not about medicine.
isn't.
It's about squeezing every last drop of blood. I mean, it's a vampiric an energy form that really has to be defeated. Now, the way we defeat it, how do we do it? We can poison it. We can stab it. We can nuke it. You know, there's plenty of ways. And Pluto is a point.
We can starve it. I think that we are a food farm.
Beast.
Starve the beast. You're the food farm. Starve the beast. Right?
Yep.
Don't give it any food. Take away the energy. Like, even metaphysically, it's like, don't give attention to the things that you don't want. Well, attention, energy to the things that you don't want also means don't give money to the things that you don't want. Don't buy them. Don't bring them into your house. Don't play ball. Right?
That's right.
You know, don't participate. Don't participate in the system.
Indeed. And well, here's the other thing. Here's the other end of this, Katie, is that you know, we're screwed on lots of levels. So I look at this because I got, you know, like you know, I got absolutely no money. You know, and when I say, you know, no money, I mean no money, none. And you know, and we're you know, so I've got no kind of what they call it, a cushion of any kind. So I have to keep earning, and you know, it just goes out, you know, on rent and food, and that's it. Rent and fuel that's all it is. And I work on old recycled bits of computer hardware and sound equipment to create this illusion of whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, stagecraft. But what I'm saying is that I have been prompted, and I realized this last night, that I was prompted in April to no longer fund the death industry. And the death industry is the farm. You know, it's the, and when I say the farm, I would like to pronounce it with a P, and it's a factory farm. You know? Right. And what we would call kingdoms are basically family farms. They're both farms. Well, you know, we're either on a farm or we're in the wild, aren't we? You know,
right,
animals in general. I was going to say animals in general don't form peaceful communities, but they do. So this is perhaps the model of how to live on Earth: is you use the same organization as higher degree animals, you know, polar bears, pandas, things like that, that are peaceful, you know, that live, you know, live happy lives, you know, Lemurian lives. You know, so again, it's like we've got the mix between the Lemurian animals and the Gallanti animals, which, like, you know, the kind of.
Well, and also just I get you on the animal piece, and the even the animal thing. This planet has been tampered with on so many levels, right, over time, and that even the animal kingdom does not behave the way that the original animal kingdom would have behaved, right? Okay, and so and also the other thing is the human being itself has been tampered with, right? And part of this initiation journey and whatever is for the human being to reclaim its original blueprint and its original self. Okay? Because the human being has been genetically and energetically dismantled so that it's operating at a very, very low, on a very low frequency band. Okay?
Yeah.
So one of the reasons for which, as part of my work, I have done over the years energy work and guided work to help people going into their multidimensional aspects, that are the higher dimensional aspects, which unfortunately people don't understand how important that is. So I often get hired to do other stuff like trying to fix somebody's relationship or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
I know.
But like the more mundane, like, here and now type of stuff. But in terms of our own journey and evolution, the more of your higher aspects you can pull in, literally, energetically, it switches back on parts of the being that were shut off. And one of the reasons which we are forced to kind of be in this kind of like toxic energy soup where there is corruption and distorted sexuality and narcissism, because their narcissistic values are being promoted more and more and all the rest of it, is so that we can't get out of the lower chakras. We just cannot get out of the lower chakras. So you're stuck in the lower chakras. You don't make a connection with the higher aspects of the self, and therefore you don't reactivate. If we were to make that connection, which we would spontaneously make if these forces were not kicking us around, suddenly reality looks much more expanded. Our nature becomes much less triggerable. We become naturally more peaceful beings. We become naturally more loving, more forgiving, more understanding. Part of it because you see the bigger picture.
Compassion.
Part of it because you're not dominated by fear so much, because you understand that it's all fine. Even if you die, you're still you. You'll just, go to another plane or something, but you're still kicking it around, right? And so, but even energetically, what I have observed of what it does is that parts of the energetic setup of the human being machine interface, because it's an interface, right, for the soul, change so that the human being machine interface can house more of the spirit, and then even the personality, I'm talking in personality soul kind of terms, becomes ensouled, right? So the personality itself, the incarnational vehicle itself, becomes ensouled.
Okay, so sorry,
yeah.
Go on.
No, I'm done.
All right.
So
my personal kind of weird opinion is that the human body is designed to run on that ensoulment energy, and that when we were captured and modified, we were then forced to run on backup energy, which is what we call food.
Yes, I agree with you.
And that when you are re-ensouled, you don't need to run on any food unless you choose to. You've got the equipment, but the necessity is no longer there, because it's like it's only there as a backup.
Yes,
and we can use our mouths for smiling and for saying good things, and now...
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And also... are you aware of Jasmine? Have you ever heard of Jasmine?
Yes, a very tall, slim, beautiful lady who says she's never eaten, or she says she doesn't eat very much. Now, a couple of years ago, I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, I was just saying that I met Jasmine in London in like 1998 or something. okay, in person. And I was still kind of at the beginning of my metaphysical adventure, so everything was more like ooh and ah than now. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, look at this, oh, look at that.
Wow, factor 5, Captain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at the colours. Oh. So I went to a lecture that she was holding, and I was kind of pretty close to her. And I didn't have a preconceived... A friend of mine just said, should we go to this lecture? And I was like, okay, I'll go. So I went to this lecture, and there she was. And I'd never heard of her before. Didn't know what the lecture was about. And she had like 3 to 4 feet of bright light all around her, aura-wise, right? Like, literally, a wall of light all around her. And I kept looking at this, and I kept thinking, that's unusual. I've never really seen that before, right? And then she started talking about her living on light thing, and she had just emerged. And in fact, I think that she was in England for that very reason, because she's Australian originally. That they had done like a 60 minutes thing on her, you know, like a TV program or something, and where they wanted to expose her, right? Like they told her that they invited her to do this thing to show how she lived on light, because she was making the claim that she could live on light, right? And then they stuck her into a hotel room in a city full of noise. She was never alone. She was surrounded by a film crew the whole time, doctors and so on. Apparently all of these people were extremely hostile towards her, or at least that is what she claims, right? And so sure enough, she couldn't do it, right? Because she kept on trying to explain to the people was, to do this, I need to be in nature, in a peaceful setting, breathing clear air, meditating and feeling happy, right? And they were like, well, if you can't do it, you know, if you can't do it in any setting, then it's bull, right? And basically, she failed whatever thing. She started deteriorating. She got very dehydrated, and eventually she had to give it up, and she had to drink and eat. Okay, but she still claims, and I tend to believe her just because of the level of light that I saw around her, that in her own environment, without all of these disturbances and with the things set up the way that she wants it, where she can meditate as much as she likes, she pretty much can go without food for days on end, right? Without food and without water as well. And my sense is that it's true, that, and in fact I think that there's always been yogi type people that have been able to do that kind of thing, right? Clearly in our world, the way that it is set up right now, with all of the EMF pollution, with all the noise, we don't even have clean air to breathe anymore. I mean, who knows what we're breathing anymore, because there's, I don't know if this is the same where you are, JP, but here they spray constantly, right? The chemtrails thing. They're constantly spraying.
Yeah. So right. Can I? Oh, sorry, Kate. You should give me a second at the minute that I can respond, because I remember Jasmine. She is a 1-2-1, so she's got the will, and this will is power, and power is Pluto. It's taking it back to the Pluto in Capricorn. It's the mortar in the pestle, right? And
Great.
We're being pounded and pounded. Capricorn is the pestle and Pluto is the mortar. We're being ground down into, we're being decrystallized, so that we can be flexible. We can be like powder. We can take any form, and we can reform and reorganize. And I think that's the whole thing. You know, we allow ourselves to be ground up by the mortar and pestle of initiations, and really it's a matter of allowing things to go with how they were. Now, Jasmine, I remember her. And I thought, very interesting. You know, I didn't meet her in person, but I could see she does have this sort of very, you know, she's blonde and she's got, you know, tan skin. She's very kind of sort of blonde Australian goddess-like. But she had the very calm attitude, and she did have the very yogi thing. And of course, you know, they're going to put her under loads and loads of pressure, and eventually they'll make a crack because they're not nice people.
No.
However, you know, again, we're talking about the factory farmers. We don't want to be in the factory farm. We're trying to escape the factory farm and create our own, you know, non-farmed sanctuary for non-farmed humans. You know,
absolutely.
free range, organic, homegrown humans. And this is also what I call the free range, organic, 100% homegrown ascension and transhumanism, which is organic transhumanism, and which is that we are going to, you know, and it's going to be like the people who go in for the Borg thing and go bionic are going to see the organic transhumans turn into amazing, super talented, super soldiers, you know, whatever, just all by themselves. Even Homer Simpson, you know, I have this feeling, you know, I want Homer Simpson to ascend because, you know, he would be, he is a sweet guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's heart-centered.
That's right.
He is. I mean, you know, it's not the going to the next level. It's not about being flawless, right? Like, it's not like Homer Simpson has a lot of flaws, but he's a loving guy, right? Like, it's not about being flawless, but it's about going into the love, right? Like, you're going into the next level, you're going into the love, so that the motivation for stuff is not solar plexus, control, you know, keeping, doing stuff.
You're not
just
chasing power. You're not chasing abuse.
No.
You know, instead of abusive relationships, we choose right relationships. Instead
Absolutely.
of Messiah-based external savior, we go to collective Messiah, internal savior.
Absolutely.
And we go from then, because what that means is that we've just gone from a rearranged, disarranged, disordered chakra system, and we've cleared all the chakras in the torso, because we've cleared the 7th ray and the 3rd ray with right relationship, and we've cleared and re-related the 6th ray and the 2nd ray in the solar plexus and heart center. And once everything is there in right order and all the chakras, then the torso is completely clear for the crown center and the base center to connect, and for the light to come down, and then the kundalini to come up. And that's when the kundalini reaches the heart center. That's when the spark comes out, and we then no longer need to eat, because we've reconnected ourselves. You see, because it's the fall. Which was created by rape and abuse, but rape, the fall disconnects those chakras. It's like a hack, you know. It's not, and it's a very, you know, it's a fault in the design. We have to do it better next time. But basically, you know, all this meditation will bring ourselves into right relationship, which is, as you were saying, proper boundaries. People know who they are and know who they're talking to. You know, that's what good boundaries are about. And go ahead.
The next level with that of the boundaries is, and I mean, we're kind of removed from this. We're not there yet, right? But the next level, just like the next level on the biology, is to not eat and to just be, right, and breathe and take in the solar light and all of kind of stuff, right, like the plants do. And the next level on the relationship and the boundaries is that nobody is abusing in the first place, so you don't even need them. Do you know what I mean? Like the level where you get to, and I think that this is one of the reasons which sometimes in relationships, some of the very light souls that haven't been on the earth plane very often kind of get screwed. Because
I thought that was the idea.
Hey, hang on a minute, why are you stepping into my field? Why are you doing this? That's right. It's like, you mean I need to have a shield? Why? Why would I want a shield? Right?
I hope you play nice in my living room.
Reality is in. That's right. It's like, why? If I didn't know I needed a shield. This is a new concept, right? Why are you trying to put nasty claws and cords into my stuff, right? So I think that sometimes the high souls can be a little disorientated with the relationship thing here on the earth plane, because the earth plane requires, at this particular stage, it still requires shields and boundaries and all that kind of stuff, and awareness of proper and improper behavior, right? But there is a point in which where if the initiation, as we've been calling it, of the hurt actually happens collectively, then that level of boundary is not required. It goes away, right?
That's right.
But in this transitional phase, the boundary is necessary still. Like, we still need it. Just like we need the boundaries with the New World Order. It's like, until there's free will violators, you need boundaries to preserve the, to keep the light whole and unbroken. You still need the boundary, right? So, and you can do boundaries with love, right? Which is you can do boundaries without love. That's called abusing the person back, right? Okay. But you can do boundaries with love, and very often that is just about knowing when to walk away from a situation and bless the person and walk, right? And it can be walking for good, or it can be walking just temporarily or whatever, but it's basically saying, I'm not playing in a game that is not healthy, right? That is basically the same thing that we're kind of being asked to do at the collective level. It's at the collective level, we're being asked to step away from a game that is not healthy.
A shunning.
Yeah. Step away from what's not healthy. Yeah. So we have a little tiny bit of time, right? Should we do a tiny meditation?
Teeny tiny one. And then we've got Rebecca Jernigan coming on at 3 o'clock with on Ever Beyond. So all very exciting. So, do you want me to? Have I got any musics? I've only got my weird thing. That's a bit strange. Yeah. I was just seeing if I've got any stuff that I could just play on the background there.
Okay.
Sort of nature sounds or something like that. Anyway, I'll have a quick look. So, what's the meditation going to be?
Well, while we were talking, I was thinking that we could. I don't know if we've done this before, but we could literally. Do a bit. I don't know. They're telling me to just shut up and do it. My entourage here. They're telling me that it's a need to know meditation in the moment, right?
Okay then. Well, in that case, we'll let go. On you go then.
Okay. All right. Okay. So. Let's see where we're going. Okay, all right. So we're going to go to the place where you started. There's the heart chakra. Okay, and to the point within the chest, and to visualize your whole being, and to visualize the chakra points from the root to the crown, that are literally almost like, energy points. The energy comes in from the root chakra, goes up the root, goes to the second chakra in the middle of the belly, then goes into the solar plexus that is above the navel, It's your will point, okay? There's nothing wrong with will. We need will to direct energy, but will by itself keeps us stuck. So there's a need to move the energy from the will point to the heart, and then from there to the crown, okay? So we're going to start by doing that, by just imagining that the energy is coming in from the environment being the earth plane, coming through the root, moving up to the second chakra, then to the third, then to the heart. And when it reaches the heart, it explodes like a star. And as it does that, it's clearing, and it's clearing all of the baggage, all of the hurt pain, the betrayals, the abandonment, the childhood trauma, the MK Ultra trauma, the PTSD, and the past life trauma. Anything that has caused the heart chakra to shut down, it gets released. Now, for every person, the level of release will be different. Not everybody can release exactly the same, right? Depending on where they're at in their journey. But whatever it is that they're ready to release, it can release. And you can literally see the energy moving out of the heart chakra and dissolving as it hits the edges of the energy field. And in this way, the blockages within the emotional body is centered into the heart chakra, begin to clear. And the emotional body becomes lighter, and the emotional body becomes softer, and the emotional body becomes more open to receive, more open to give. And you can literally visualize as if there's blockages in the emotional body that you can see them as like little pockets of dense energy that's actually JayPee and I have been talking about this flu that's going around, and on one level it's a chemtrail flu, and on another level it feels like a massive clearing at the planetary level that people are going through because it's time for us to release, right? And so some people are having a lot of throat and chest issues. That's all heart chakra and communication. What places has your heart been injured? In what places has your ability to speak and speak up and to speak your truth has been taken away, right? And the focus on this is not so that we are victims and we go on about how bad things have been in this lifetime or other lifetimes or whatever. It's so that we can clear it, we can speak truth, so that we can feel the love, so that we can be strong and be vulnerable at the same time, and so that we can open and thrive, right? Now, as the energy clears from the emotional body, if anybody has any of these kind of chesty flus or whatever illnesses that are going on at the moment, anywhere in the body, see the energy that the body is trying to release clearing. See the energy that it clear at whatever level in your body. If there's any place in your body in which you have pain, see the energy of that releasing. If there's any part, you can even scan your body and see if there's any part of your body that lights up and is calling for attention. You take a minute and look at that. See if the body is trying to tell you something. See if the body has a message for you, something that you need to know that can facilitate your healing, not just at the physical level, but also at the emotional level, right? Patterns that you're trying to shift, parts of you that may need love, healing, and repair. And as we see these energies shifting and moving, we also visualize the upper chakras opening, the crown opening, and not only that, but we visualize the reactivation of what is dormant within the self, and not the bad stuff, but the good stuff. What part of your true light blueprint through your incarnational journey, through this galaxy, through the Earth plane, in the Orion system, in Atlantis, in Egypt, wherever it is that you have been, on Maldek, or whatever, whatever you've been through, if there's been a part of you that had to shut down as a result of that, as an accidental trauma, or as a result of that, as a deliberate trauma that you encountered on this journey, visualize these parts healing, coming back online, literally like being reconnected, like wires that are being reconnected. And this can be at any level of your being, from the cellular to the DNA, on the genetic front, or on the multidimensional level as well. If there's pieces of your soul self, the soul self being the part of you that is beyond the incarnational, that is like the hub of consciousness from which your incarnational self stems. If there's piece of your soul self that were broken off by trauma, through your journey, through all of these lives, through all of these experiences, ask for those pieces also to be cleared, and visualize them returning and reintegrating with your current manifestation of your soul self. And then once you have done that, and people that are visual may see pieces of their soul returning, but if you're not visual, it's okay. It's happening anyway, just because you're intending it. Now intend for the soul light to merge with the physical, emotional, mental manifestations of your vehicle. Imagine your soul self as a hub of light, literally merging with your physical being and helping even further as the light of your soul comes in to your body, helping even further with this process of clearing and reclaiming and reactivating. And for those that want this, some may not, you have your free will, ask that this process continue in the way that is the most healing, gentle, graceful, but also effective for you over the past 2 to 3 months as we move. I have a feeling that in 3 months the energy is going to be different still, but ask for this process to continue so that you can continue to clear and reintegrate until the soul, the light of your own soul, can gradually come into the body more and more and help you to live from the level of awareness that you were always supposed to be carrying within your physical vehicle. And this in itself is going to not only help you, but help the process of transition for humanity as a group being to go into a new level where it can express the soul aspects of the humanity group consciousness that have not been able to fully anchor onto this plane for many, many cycles, but that is getting better and more ready every moment, every week, every month to reclaim its stewardship of the earth as it was always supposed to have and be. And so it is.
So it is. So it is. And so it is. So, Katie,
yes,
that brings us up to the top of the show. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Quite a ride today, and
Yep.
You know, I think you know, we're looking at the way we're moving and the way we're evolving. I'll probably be continuing this conversation with my next guest, Rebecca
Excellent.
Jernigan. So
Excellent.
if everybody stays tuned, we're going to talk about some good stuff. You know, the usual. Katie Gallanti.
Right? Do we have a couple minutes or 1 minute?
Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes. Yeah, go on.
Okay. This time I'm going to do a tiny piece of shameless self-promotion, right? Because
Shameless self-promotion minute, because she deserves some help, okay?
Yeah, I'm actually going to publicly announce that I'm down to my last $5 because I've been sick for 2 months. It was 2 months for 2 weeks, and I haven't been able to work. So if people want to make a donation towards me, even if you just give $10, it actually helps me to have food for another day. So
Or book a session.
Or you can book a session with me. My voice is back, so I can work now, right? And I was voiceless for 8 days. And you can go to my website for both of those things, both for my work and for the donation piece. And it's katiegallanti.com or reclaimingthelight.com. Both go to the same website. Yay!
Yes. Can you spell Katie Gallanti? Because there's L's and T's and things.
Okay. Katie Gallanti, GALLANTI.com.
Marvelous.
And if that's difficult, you can do reclaimingthelight.com. Same thing. Okay? And I thank you in advance. Actually, somebody the last time did make a donation, a very nice person, and it was very much appreciated. So they know who they are. I'm thanking them from here.
Marvelous. So here we are.
Yes.
I'm going to play a bit of Beatles after the show outro. We've got. We're talking about doctors. I thought I'll play Dr. Robert. So anyway.
That's right.
Bless your heart. Thank you very much, Katie. It's been lovely to speak to you again.
Lots of love, and we'll speak soon. Bye.
Bye.